On October 8, 2025, the world awoke to a seismic shift, not with gunfire but with a news alert. Saudi Arabia would now accept Chinese yuan for its oil. This move, triggered by aggressive U.S. tariffs under a newly re-elected Trump administration, sent shockwaves through global markets. Wall Street panicked, the Dow plunged, and the U.S. dollar, long the world's financial anchor, began to slide. Meanwhile, the Chinese yuan surged, suddenly positioned as a contender for global reserve currency status. In Washington, leaders scrambled, blindsided by the unraveling of a decades-old packed Saudi oil for U.S. dollars in exchange for American security. That deal had propped up the dollar's dominance in America's global power for generations. Now, with a single announcement, the foundation cracked. Across the globe, allies worried about U.S. reliability, while rivals like Russia cheered, seeing a path to a multipolar financial system. For nations long constrained by the dollar's reach, a new era beckoned. The petrodollar's grip had loosened overnight. The old rules no longer applied. The world was entering uncharted territory. The global order had shifted, perhaps forever. To grasp the magnitude of today's events, we must revisit the birth of the petrodollar. In the early 1970s, after Nixon severed the dollar's link to gold, the U.S. needed a new way to anchor its currency. The answer, a secret deal with Saudi Arabia. The kingdom agreed to sell oil exclusively in U.S. dollars and reinvest its profits in American assets. In return, the U.S. guaranteed Saudi security. This arrangement created a global demand for dollars. Every nation needed them to buy oil. The petrodollar system replaced gold with oil as the world's financial bedrock. For 50 years, this cycle fueled America's economic might. The dollar became the world's reserve currency, letting the U.S. borrow cheaply and run deficits with little consequence. Countries recycled their oil profits into U.S. Treasury bonds, further cementing the dollar's dominance. The U.S. gained a powerful tool, the ability to impose sanctions and control access to the global financial system. The world ran on dollars, and America set the rules. This system shaped the modern global order. But as today's events show, even the strongest foundations can crack. The petrodollar era, once unassailable, now faces its greatest test. The world is watching to see what comes next. The stakes could not be higher. The petrodollar system didn't just benefit the U.S., it rewired the global economy. With oil priced in dollars, nearly all international trade followed suit. The U.S. enjoyed what France called an exorbitant privilege. It could print money to pay for imports, a luxury no other nation had. American businesses thrived, facing no currency risk abroad. The dollar's strength kept borrowing costs low, funding everything from military spending to social programs. Most importantly, the U.S. wielded unmatched geopolitical power. By controlling dollar flows, Washington could sanction adversaries and pressure even its allies. Alternatives like the euro or yen never gained enough traction. The Chinese yuan, tightly controlled by Beijing, wasn't ready for prime time. For decades, the world had no real choice but to use the dollar. Its reign seemed absolute, until now. The petrodollar's dominance shaped the world we know. But history shows, no empire lasts forever. The cracks were always there, waiting for a moment to widen. Beneath the surface, the U.S.-Saudi alliance was fraying. America's shale boom made it less dependent on Middle Eastern oil, and its security commitments to the region waned. China's rise as the world's top oil importer drew Saudi Arabia eastward. What began as a commercial relationship deepened into a strategic partnership. China invested in Saudi infrastructure, technology, and the ambitious Vision 2030 plan. In return, Saudi Arabia joined China's Belt and Road Initiative, forging new trade routes and economic ties. Beijing offered what Washington no longer could: investment without lectures, partnership without interference. China pushed for oil to be priced in yuan, even launching its own oil futures market. As U.S. support grew uncertain, Riyadh saw the logic in diversifying its alliances and its currency bets. The stage was set for a dramatic pivot. The world's energy axis was shifting. The dollar's monopoly was no longer guaranteed. The Trump administration's return accelerated the rift, demanding more payment for U.S. protection and imposing harsh tariffs on Saudi oil. Washington alienated its longtime ally. Riyadh saw these moves as betrayal, shattering the petrodollar pact. China seized the moment, offering to buy oil in Yuan and invest heavily in Saudi development. The Saudis faced a stark choice: cling to an unreliable America or embrace a rising China. Accepting Yuan for oil was both retaliation and reinvention, a bold step toward independence. The petrodollar era ended not with a bang, but with a calculated pivot. The world's energy and financial map was redrawn overnight. The fallout was immediate. Oil prices in dollars soared, while the yuan price held steady, giving an edge to those trading in China's currency. The dollar's decline triggered inflation in the US, raising the cost of imports and squeezing American families. Financing government debt became harder and more expensive. America's power to sanction rivals weakened as countries found ways to bypass the dollar. Allies in Europe and Asia faced tough choices, caught between US security and Chinese economic clout. The global financial system began to fragment, with new blocs forming around the yuan and euro. Nations scrambled to hedge their bets, seeking balance in a world no longer dominated by a single currency. The old order was gone. The new one was unpredictable, and still taking shape. The petrodollar's fall had set off a chain reaction. The world was learning to live without a king. Saudi Arabia's move marks the end of the dollar's unchallenged reign. The world is shifting to a multi-currency era, with the yuan and euro rising as rivals. Oil exporters and commodity nations are likely to follow Riyadh's lead, accelerating the dollar's decline. The global financial system will become more fragmented, but also more balanced. This transition brings risk and opportunity, greater competition, but also the chance for a fairer system. For the US, it's a moment to adapt or be left behind. The unipolar world is over. A new, multipolar order is emerging. The petrodollar's fall is just the beginning. The challenge now, navigating this new reality peacefully and building a stable future for all. The world is watching, and history is being rewritten.